Hey guys, tonight we're exploring a story that everyone in history should know. The story is the mystery of ancient Greece's strangest rules. You get comfortable, take a moment, like the video, and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The mystery of ancient Greece's strangest rules. Imagine that the world has become wonderfully quiet. The busy sounds of the present slowly fade away until only a gentle breeze remains. Above you stretches a wide sky filled with soft stars, while somewhere in the distance, the waves of the Mediterranean Sea roll steadily against a rocky shore. Their rhythm is slow, peaceful, and familiar, as though the sea has been telling the same story for thousands of years. Tonight, you are not rushing anywhere. There is nothing to solve and nothing to remember. Instead, you are simply taking a gentle walk through one of history's most fascinating civilizations. Picture yourself standing on a narrow stone path in ancient Greece. The first light of dawn has not yet arrived, and the air carries the cool freshness of the night. Olive trees surround the hillside, their silver-green leaves quietly moving whenever the wind passes through. The scent of wild herbs rises from the ground beneath your feet, mixing with the salty breath of the nearby sea. A small village is beginning to wake. Somewhere a rooster calls into the darkness. A shepherd quietly prepares to lead his flock toward distant hills. Smoke begins to curl from a few stone houses where families are lighting cooking fires before sunrise. Everything moves slowly, almost peacefully. You find yourself walking toward the heart of the settlement, where people will soon gather in the marketplace. But before the voices of merchants fill the air, there is another story waiting to be told. It is the story of rules. Ancient Greece, is often remembered for great philosophers, magnificent temples, brave soldiers, and the birth of democracy. Yet hidden beneath these famous achievements lies another world, one built from countless laws, traditions, and customs that shaped every ordinary day. Some of these rules seem perfectly reasonable even today. Others seem almost impossible to believe. Why would someone be expected to honor a stranger before asking their name? Why were some people praised for speaking freely, while others faced punishment for saying the wrong thing? Why could a simple piece of clothing quietly reveal a person's place in society? And why did entire cities create laws that appear strange to modernize but made perfect sense to the people who live there? As we quietly travel through ancient Greece, we will discover that every unusual rule had a purpose. Some protected communities, others strengthened religious traditions. Many reflected fears, hopes, and beliefs that shaped everyday life. To understand these rules, we must first understand the world in which they existed. Ancient Greece was never a single united country in the way many modern nations are today. Instead, it was a collection of independent city-states, each known as a polis. Every polis had its own government, its own customs, its own priorities, and often its own laws. Athens valued debate and public discussion. Sparta admired discipline and military strength. Corinth became famous for trade. Thebes followed its own traditions. Although these cities shared a common language and many religious beliefs, they often disagreed about how people should live. Imagine visiting one city where citizens proudly gathered to discuss politics in the open air. Then imagine traveling only a few days away to another city where quiet obedience mattered far more than public debate. The differences could be remarkable, yet across all these places, rules quietly guided daily life from sunrise until nightfall. Some laws were carved into stone for everyone to see. Others existed only through tradition, passed carefully from one generation to the next. Children learned them by watching parents. Young apprentices learned them from experienced craftsmen. Farmers followed them because their fathers had done the same. Priests guarded sacred customs that were believed to please the gods. Many rules were never questioned because they had simply always existed. As the morning slowly arrives, sunlight begins to touch the hills surrounding the village. Farmers open wooden gates and lead donkeys toward the fields. Women prepare bread from grain that was carefully ground by hand. Children carry water from public fountains. Old men gather beneath shaded trees, talking quietly about harvests, politics, and news arriving from neighboring cities. Everything appears ordinary, yet every small action is connected to rules. Who may speak first? Who may own land? Who may vote? Who may marry? Who may inherit property? Who may enter certain temples? Who may participate in festivals? Who must serve in the army? These questions were answered not by personal choice alone, but by customs that shaped society. Modern people sometimes imagine ancient laws as harsh collections of punishments. Certainly, punishments existed, but many rules focused instead on creating order. Imagine a busy marketplace without agreed prices. Imagine ships arriving from distant islands without shared trading customs. Imagine religious ceremonies where everyone behaved differently. Life would quickly become confusing. Rules brought predictability. They allowed strangers to cooperate. They helped cities survive. One of the most remarkable traditions in ancient Greece involved hospitality. Today, welcoming a guest may simply seem polite. For many Greeks, however, hospitality carried sacred importance. A traveler arriving after sunset might be offered food, water, and a place to sleep before anyone even asked where they came from. At first, this feels unusual. Wouldn't people want to know who had entered their home? The answer lies in religion. Many Greeks believed that the king of the gods, Zeus, watched carefully over strangers and travelers. Mistreating a guest was not merely rude. It risked offending a powerful god. Imagine walking for days beneath the summer sun. Dust covers your sandals. Your water supply has nearly disappeared. At last you reach a farmhouse surrounded by olive trees. Instead of questioning you immediately, the family invites you inside. Fresh water is poured into a simple clay cup. Bread still warm from the oven is placed before you. Perhaps there is cheese made from goat's milk? Perhaps olives gathered from nearby groves. Only after you have rested does conversation begin. Hospitality itself became a kind of unwritten law. No police enforced it. No courtroom judged every act. Yet countless families followed it faithfully. This gentle respect for strangers connected distant communities across mountains and islands. Of course, not every visitor deserved complete trust. People remained cautious. Still, offering basic kindness reflected values shared throughout much of Greek society. As you continue your quiet walk, the village grows busier. Blacksmiths begin heating their furnaces. Potters shape wet clay upon spinning wheels. Fishermen return from calm morning waters carrying their catches. Every occupation followed traditions learned over many years. Some craftsmen belonged to families that practiced the same skills for generations. Knowledge passed quietly from parent to child, not through written textbooks, but through observation, patience, and repeated practice. Rules existed even within these workshops. Young apprentices respected experienced masters. Tools were carefully maintained. Materials were never wasted. Reputation mattered greatly. A skilled potter known for honest work might receive customers from distant towns. Someone who cheated buyers could lose trust that might never return. Long before official business regulations appeared, personal honor helped keep trade functioning. Imagine entering a pottery workshop. The smell of damp clay fills the room. Shelves display jars of every shape and size. Some will carry olive oil. Others will store grain. Still others will hold wine for family celebrations. Each object seems simple. Yet behind every finished vessel stand years of careful learning and quiet discipline. Outside, the marketplace slowly fills with conversation. Merchants greet familiar faces. Children weave between stalls. Donkeys patiently wait beside loaded baskets. Fresh figs, onions, herbs, fish, woven cloth, and handmade tools appear one by one. Life feels peaceful. Yet beneath this peaceful scene stand invisible rules that everyone understands. Some merchants use agreed weights. Customers expect fair measures. Arguments occasionally happen, but shared customs reduce confusion. Trust allows business to continue. Without trust, even the busiest market cannot survive for long. As the sun climbs higher into the sky, your journey continues toward one of the greatest differences between the ancient and modern world. In many Greek cities, citizenship itself was a remarkable privilege. Not everyone living inside the city belonged equally. Citizens often enjoyed rights that foreigners, visitors, enslaved people, and even long-term residents did not possess. This may seem unfair today. Indeed, by modern standards it was. Yet understanding these distinctions helps explain many unusual laws that followed. Citizenship affected voting, military service, property ownership, participation in festivals, legal protections, and public responsibilities. Being a citizen meant more than living somewhere. It meant belonging to a political community whose members believed they shared responsibility for the future of their city. Imagine hearing the sound of a bronze bell echo across Athens. Men eligible to participate gather slowly. Some leave workshops, others leave farms. They walk toward public spaces where important decisions will be discussed. Not everyone may enter. The gathering belongs to citizens. This simple rule shaped countless lives. Ancient Greece often celebrated freedom. Yet that freedom usually applied only to certain members of society. Understanding this balance between liberty and limitation helps explain many of Greece's most surprising customs. As afternoon sunlight softens, warm breezes move gently through the olive groves once again. Birds sing quietly from nearby branches. The sea continues its endless conversation with the shore. You begin to notice something remarkable. Many strange rules no longer seem quite so strange. Each one emerged from daily life. Each reflected practical concerns, religious beliefs, political ideas, or community traditions. Some protected travelers, some encouraged fairness. Some reinforced social order, others preserved customs that people believed connected them to their ancestors and their gods. History rarely creates rules without reason. Sometimes those reasons disappear while the rules remain. Thousands of years later, we look back with curiosity. But for the people living in ancient Greece, these customs often felt as natural as sunrise over the Aegean Sea, as the day slowly comes to its peaceful close. Long shadows stretch across stone streets. Families gather for evening meals. Oil lamps begin glowing inside simple homes. Conversations become quieter. The village settles gently into another calm Mediterranean night. And tomorrow, our journey will continue deeper into the remarkable world of ancient Greece, where citizenship, belonging, and identity shaped some of history's most unusual laws. The gentle darkness has now settled comfortably across the hills. And for a little while, the villages of ancient Greece seem to rest beneath a blanket of quiet stars. Somewhere beyond the olive groves, the sea continues its endless rhythm against the rocky coast. The waves neither hurry nor pause. They simply arrive, retreat, and arrive again, just as they have done for countless generations. As the morning slowly arrives, the eastern horizon begins to brighten with soft shades of silver and pale gold. A cool breeze carries the familiar scent of rosemary, thyme, and damp earth. Before the city fully awakens, only a few figures move through the narrow streets. Picture yourself walking beside them. The stone beneath your sandals is cool from the night's air. Nearby, an elderly woman carefully sweeps the entrance to her home with a bundle of dried branches. A baker feeds fresh olive wood into a clay oven. Soon the comforting smell of warm bread drifts into the quiet streets. Everything appears peaceful. Yet even before the first customers reach the marketplace, invisible rules are already shaping the day. Some people belong, others do not. To a modern visitor, that distinction may seem surprisingly complicated. In many parts of the ancient world, simply living inside a city did not automatically make someone part of its political community. Ancient Greece was no exception. A person might spend an entire lifetime inside a city, raise children there, own a successful business, and still never become a citizen. This was one of the most important ideas in Greek society. Citizenship was not simply an address. It was a relationship. It connected an individual to the history, responsibilities, and future of the city itself. Imagine standing outside the walls of Athens more than 2,000 years ago. Travelers arrive from many directions. Some come from nearby villages, carrying baskets of vegetables. Others have crossed the sea from islands scattered across the Aegean. Merchant ships unload timber, pottery, olive oil, wine, and finely woven cloth. Many languages can be heard in the busy harbor. Some visitors stay only a day. Others remain for years. A few decide never to leave. Yet despite living among Athenians, many of these newcomers remained outsiders in the eyes of the law. The Greeks even had a word for long-term foreign residents. They were known as metics. A metic could become an important craftsman, an experienced merchant, or a respected neighbor. Some became wealthy through trade. Others introduced valuable skills that benefited the entire city. Yet most still could not vote in the assembly. They could not hold many public offices. Their place in society was respected in some ways, but carefully limited in others. Today, such distinctions may seem difficult to understand. But for many Greek communities, citizenship was closely connected to ancestry. They believed that those whose families had belonged to the city for generations shared a unique responsibility to govern it. Whether this idea was fair is another question. History often asks us to understand people without requiring us to agree with every choice they made. As you continue your quiet walk, the streets gradually become busier. Donkeys carry baskets filled with olives. Potters transport newly fired jars toward the marketplace. Children laugh as they chase one another through narrow alleys before beginning their lessons. Somewhere nearby, a rooster announces the arrival of the new day once again. Life unfolds gently. Yet every person you pass occupies a different place within society. An elderly citizen greets another with quiet familiarity. A visiting merchant politely steps aside. An enslaved worker carries heavy bundles toward a workshop. A fisherman returns from the harbor with fresh catches wrapped inside woven baskets. Each person lives under different expectations. One of the strangest rules to modernize involved participation in politics. Athens is often called the birthplace of democracy. That description contains truth, but also requires careful understanding. Many citizens could speak in public meetings. Many could vote directly on important decisions. Yet these opportunities were generally limited to adult male citizens. Women, enslaved people, and foreign residents usually did not participate in those political assemblies. Imagine the assembly gathering beneath the open sky. Hundreds, sometimes thousands, of citizens slowly arrive. Some have traveled many miles from farms outside the city. Others come directly from workshops. They gather beneath the warm Mediterranean sun. Voices rise and fall as questions are debated. Should a new temple be built? Should taxes change? Should peace be offered to another city? Should soldiers prepare for war? Each speaker hopes to persuade fellow citizens through careful words rather than loud shouting. This was one of Athens' greatest achievements. People believed important decisions should be discussed openly. but participation depended entirely upon citizenship. The rule was simple. If you were not a citizen, your voice usually remained outside the official debate. As you quietly observe the gathering, another interesting custom becomes clear. Public speaking itself carried responsibility. Citizens could criticize leaders. They could question proposals. They could disagree with one another. But persuasion required preparation. Many spent years learning how to organize ideas clearly. Teachers, known as rhetoricians, helped students develop speaking skills. Words became tools, not weapons, not entertainment, but instruments of public life. Imagine the silence settling across the crowd as one speaker steps forward. He adjusts his simple cloak. He pauses, then begins speaking calmly. No microphone carries his voice, only careful practice. Every listener pays close attention. Here, the ability to speak thoughtfully becomes almost as valuable as military strength. Elsewhere in Greece, however, entirely different rules existed. Picture yourself traveling south towards Sparta. The journey crosses rocky hills, fertile valleys, and winding mountain paths. Gradually, the atmosphere changes. Sparta admired simplicity. Luxury attracted little admiration. Discipline mattered more than comfort. Here, citizenship demanded lifelong service. Spartan boys began military training while still very young. Their education focused not only upon reading and music, but also endurance, cooperation, and physical strength. Every citizen understood that personal comfort often came second to the needs of the community. Visitors from other Greek cities sometimes found Spartan customs surprising. Meals were simple. Homes remained modest. Even speech reflected local values. Spartans became famous for giving brief, direct answers. Long speeches earned little praise. This preference eventually gave rise to the word laconic, derived from Laconia, the region where Sparta stood. Even today, someone who speaks very briefly may be described as laconic. It is a quiet reminder of ancient customs surviving into modern language. As the sun climbs higher overhead, imagine resting beneath the shade of an old olive tree. Its thick trunk has witnessed generations come and go. Perhaps children once climbed its branches. Perhaps elders once gathered beneath its shade to settle disagreements. Perhaps travelers stopped here to escape the afternoon heat. Trees often became silent companions to history. Around you, cicadas begin their steady summer song. Their gentle rhythm fills the warm air without disturbing its peace. Nearby, shepherds guide sheep toward greener hillsides. Everything moves slowly. There is no need to hurry. Ancient life followed the seasons far more closely than modern schedules. Harvests determined work. Weather determined travel. Sunrise and sunset quietly organized each day. Many laws reflected this close relationship with nature. Farmers respected boundaries separating neighboring fields. Olive trees represented valuable family property. Water sources required careful sharing, especially during dry summers. Imagine two neighboring farmers discussing the position of a stone marking the edge of their land. Neither wishes for conflict. Both understand that clear boundaries prevent future arguments. Simple rules preserve peaceful relationships. Sometimes the most important laws concerned ordinary things. Not kings, not battles, simply fields, trees, water, roads. These everyday regulations rarely appear in famous history books, yet they shaped countless ordinary lives. As afternoon approaches, you find yourself entering the lively marketplace once again. Foreign merchants display colorful fabrics from distant lands. Local craftsmen arrange bronze tools upon wooden tables. The smell of freshly baked bread mixes with herbs, fish, and pressed olives. Children watch traveling entertainers while elderly citizens exchange news beneath shaded porticos. Among this lively gathering stand many strangers. Some have arrived from Egypt, others from Phoenicia, some perhaps from Sicily or Asia Minor. Trade connected the Mediterranean long before modern nations existed. Ancient Greece was never isolated. Ideas traveled with ships, so did stories, religious beliefs, artistic styles, scientific knowledge. Yet despite welcoming commerce, many cities remained cautious about extending citizenship. Economic exchange proved easier than political inclusion. It was possible to trust someone as a trading partner while still reserving certain civic responsibilities for long-established families. To modernize, this balance may seem unusual, but history often reveals societies solving problems according to values very different from our own. As evening slowly approaches, golden sunlight settles softly across marble buildings. Long shadows stretch over public squares. Birds return toward their nests among cypress trees. Families begin preparing the evening meal. The day's business gradually comes to an end. You notice something quietly remarkable. The strange rules of ancient Greece are becoming less mysterious. Each one reflects a question every society must eventually answer. Who belongs? Who decides? Who protects the community? Who carries responsibility? Different civilizations have answered these questions in different ways. Ancient Greece offered one collection of answers. Some ideas inspired later generations. Others remain firmly within their own time. All of them help us understand the people who once walked these same sunlit streets. As darkness gently returns, oil lamps begin glowing behind wooden doors. Soft conversations drift through open windows. Somewhere in the distance, a shepherd's flute carries a simple melody across the evening air. The stars slowly appear once more above the quiet hills. Our journey has only just begun. Many more curious customs still wait beyond tomorrow's sunrise. Together we will continue exploring the peaceful world of ancient Greece, discovering how family life, marriage, and the home shaped some of its most unusual and enduring traditions. The stars have quietly watched over the hills throughout the night, their gentle light reflecting across the calm waters of the Aegean Sea. Somewhere in the distance, the steady sound of waves continues its timeless conversation with the shore. The world feels peaceful, as though history itself has settled into a slow and comfortable rhythm. As the morning slowly arrives, the darkness begins to soften. A pale glow appears behind distant mountains, touching the tops of olive trees with the first hints of golden light. The cool air carries the scent of damp earth, fresh herbs, and smoke rising from the earliest cooking fires. You find yourself walking through another quiet Greek neighborhood. The streets are still narrow, paved with worn stones polished by generations of footsteps. Small houses stand close together, their whitewashed walls reflecting the growing light. Wooden doors begin to open one by one as families prepare for another ordinary day. It is inside these homes that some of ancient Greece's most interesting rules quietly shaped everyday life. When people think about ancient Greece, they often imagine philosophers discussing ideas beneath marble columns or athletes competing in famous games. Yet most Greeks spent far more time at home than in temples or public squares. Their world centered around family. Family was more than affection or shared meals. It was the foundation of society itself. Almost every important moment in life was connected to the household. Birth, childhood, marriage, inheritance, old age. Even religious ceremonies often began at home before continuing in public. Imagine entering a modest Athenian house shortly after sunrise. The courtyard lies at its center, open to the sky. Morning sunlight slowly warms the stone floor while a clay fountain quietly trickles nearby. A few chickens wander through the yard, searching for scattered grain. Inside, the smell of freshly baked barley bread fills the air. Someone grinds grain using a heavy stone mill. Another family member carefully pours olive oil into a small clay lamp before extinguishing its fading flame from the night before. Nothing feels hurried. Each task follows a familiar rhythm repeated countless times before. The house itself reflects practical needs rather than luxury. Many homes contained only a few rooms arranged around the central courtyard. This design allowed sunlight and fresh air to reach every part of daily life, while providing privacy from the busy streets outside. Privacy mattered. Ancient Greek families believed that home should be a place of order, responsibility, and respect. Visitors were welcomed, but the household remained its own carefully managed world. One of the most unusual customs concerned the authority of the head of the household. In many Greek cities, the oldest adult man usually carried legal responsibility for the family. He represented the household in public matters. He managed property. He arranged important agreements. He also accepted responsibilities that extended far beyond his own personal life. Today, this arrangement may seem unequal, and by modern standards, it certainly was. Women often exercised significant influence within the household itself, especially regarding daily management, food preparation, textile production, and raising children. Yet, public legal authority usually rested with male family members. History reminds us that societies have organized themselves in many different ways. Understanding those systems helps us understand the people who lived within them. As you quietly continue through the neighborhood, gentle sounds drift from nearby homes. Children laugh while chasing one another across small courtyards. Goats bleat softly from shaded pens. Clay pots gently clink together as water is carried from the public fountain. The entire neighborhood feels connected. Neighbors know one another. Families often remain in the same community for generations. Reputation becomes almost as valuable as wealth. family known for honesty earns trust. One known for generosity gains respect. These quiet qualities cannot be purchased. They grow slowly over many years. Imagine sitting beneath the shade of a grapevine, stretched across a wooden frame. An elderly grandmother tells stories to children gathered around her. She speaks not from written books, but from memory. Stories of heroes, stories of wise ancestors, stories of the gods, stories explaining why certain customs should never be forgotten. Long before many people learned to read, history traveled from one generation to the next through careful conversation. Memory itself became a kind of living library. Children learned not only facts but values. Respect older relatives, honor guests, care for family property, keep promises. These lessons appeared again and again in daily life. One particularly important event in Greek society was marriage. Unlike modern weddings, centered almost entirely on personal romance, marriage in ancient Greece often carried broader responsibilities. Families considered practical questions alongside personal ones. Would the marriage strengthen family relationships? Would property remain secure? Would future children belong to respected households? These concerns shaped many marriage customs. Imagine a peaceful evening before a wedding. Oil lamps glow softly inside the family home. Friends and relatives gather together. Fresh bread rests beside bowls of olives, figs, cheese, and wine diluted with water, according to Greek custom. Laughter rises gently into the evening air. Musicians quietly play simple melodies using the lyre and flute. The atmosphere feels warm rather than extravagant. Many Greek weddings unfolded over several days, each filled with traditions believed to bring harmony to the new household. The bride often left her childhood home in a ceremonial procession. Family members accompanied her through streets illuminated by torches after sunset. The quiet light flickered across stone walls while neighbors watched respectfully from nearby doorways. To modern observers, some customs may appear symbolic. To ancient families, they carried deep meaning. Marriage united not only two individuals but two households. New responsibilities began immediately. Another interesting rule involved inheritance. Property often remained within the family across generations. Land, olive groves, vineyards, livestock, and homes represented years of patient work. Passing them carefully from parents to children helped preserve family stability. Imagine an old olive tree planted by a grandfather many decades earlier. His children harvest its fruit. Later, grandchildren continue caring for the same tree. Eventually, great-grandchildren gather beneath its branches. One tree quietly connects 4 generations. The same idea applied to many family possessions. Ownership carried responsibility. The goal was not merely to possess something, but to preserve it for those who came after. As the sun climbs higher, everyday work fills the neighborhood. Women spin wool into thread using simple wooden spindles. The soft movement repeats hour after hour. Later, the thread becomes cloth upon upright looms, standing inside cool rooms, sheltered from the afternoon heat. Imagine listening carefully. The gentle wooden rhythm of weaving fills the air. Thread passes over and beneath other threads. Slowly, patiently, a piece of fabric begins to appear. Clothing required enormous effort before the invention of modern machines. Every finished garment represented many hours of careful work. Because of this, clothing carried value beyond appearance alone. Families repaired garments whenever possible. Nothing useful was casually discarded. Ancient Greek households understood the importance of making resources last. This practical habit reflected both necessity and wisdom. Nearby, children begin learning household skills. Young boys may accompany older relatives into fields, workshops, or marketplaces. Young girls often learn spinning, weaving, cooking, and household management from experienced family members. Education happened gradually through participation. Children watched, they listened, then they practiced. Mistakes became opportunities to learn rather than reasons for discouragement. Imagine a father patiently showing his son how to prune an olive tree. Each careful cut encourages healthier growth. The lesson is not simply about farming. It teaches patience, observation, responsibility. Likewise, imagine a mother teaching her daughter to prepare bread. The child learns how much water to mix with flour, how warm the oven should become, how long the dough must rest. Simple knowledge passed quietly from one generation to another. Many of history's greatest skills survived because ordinary families shared them every day. As afternoon warmth settles over the city, shadows shorten beneath stone buildings. The marketplace grows quieter as people return home for the hottest hours. Inside shaded courtyards, families share simple meals, bread, olives, cheese, fresh vegetables, perhaps fish if the sea has been generous, sometimes fruit gathered from nearby orchards. Meals are rarely hurried. Conversation accompanies food. News travels from neighbor to neighbor. Stories continue. Children ask questions. Older relatives remember events from many years before. The home becomes both classroom and refuge. Religion also quietly entered family life. Many households kept small shrines honoring protective gods or ancestral traditions. Simple offerings might include flowers, grain, olive oil, or incense. These rituals were usually modest. They reflected gratitude rather than spectacle. Imagine the faint scent of burning incense rising gently through the still afternoon air. Sunlight filters into the courtyard while family members pause for a quiet moment of reflection. Such scenes repeated across countless Greek homes for centuries. As evening slowly approaches once more, cooler air begins returning from the sea. Neighbors greet one another while drawing fresh water from nearby fountains. Children gradually end their games. Animals settle quietly into their shelters. Oil lamps are prepared once again. The familiar rhythm of another day nears its peaceful conclusion. Looking back over the day, the unusual rules of ancient Greek family life begin to reveal their deeper purpose. Marriage protected households. Inheritance preserved stability. shared responsibilities strengthened communities. Practical knowledge passed carefully between generations. Many customs that first seem unfamiliar were designed to create continuity in a world where survival often depended upon cooperation and careful planning. Some traditions may feel distant from modern life. Others remain surprisingly familiar. Families everywhere, across every century, have hoped to provide safety, guidance, and belonging for those they love. The methods change. The hopes remain remarkably similar. Night gradually returns to the hills. The stars appear one by one above the quiet rooftops. A soft breeze stirs the leaves of ancient olive trees. Faraway waves continue meeting the shore with the same gentle rhythm that welcomed us at the beginning of our journey. Tomorrow we will step outside these peaceful homes and explore the curious rules that governed what people wore, what they ate, and how they behaved in public, discovering that even the smallest details of everyday life were shaped by customs that may seem wonderfully strange today. The quiet evening slowly gives way to another peaceful dawn. Long before the busy voices of the marketplace begin to echo through the streets, the first light spreads gently across the mountains surrounding the valleys of Greece. A cool breeze drifts in from the sea, carrying the familiar scent of salt, pine trees, and wild thyme growing between the rocks. For a few moments the world feels wonderfully still. Only the distant call of seabirds and the soft bells hanging around the necks of grazing goats break the silence. You find yourself once again walking along a narrow stone road. The houses are simple but welcoming, their walls catching the first golden rays of sunlight. Small gardens filled with herbs and vegetables stand beside many homes, carefully tended by generations of families who understand the value of every growing season. As another ordinary day begins, you soon discover that even the simplest parts of daily life were quietly guided by customs and expectations. What people wore, what they ate, how they greeted one another, how they behaved during meals, how they walked through public places. These may seem like small details, yet together they formed an invisible web of rules that helped Greek society function with remarkable order. Imagine entering the marketplace just after sunrise. Merchants are still arranging their goods upon wooden tables. Fresh vegetables glisten with morning dew. Baskets overflow with figs, onions, garlic, lentils, and fragrant herbs, gathered only hours earlier. Nearby, fishermen unload baskets filled with sea bream, sardines, octopus, and shellfish caught during the quiet hours before dawn. The smell of fresh bread drifts through the square. A baker carefully removes round loaves from a clay oven using a long wooden paddle. The warm aroma spreads through the cool morning air, inviting neighbors to begin another peaceful day. Bread was one of the foundations of daily life. Most Greek families ate some form of bread nearly every day. Barley was especially common, although wheat became more available in certain regions and among wealthier households. Unlike the soft loaves many people enjoy today, ancient bread often had a firmer texture and reflected the grain available each season. bread was rarely eaten alone. Olive oil accompanied nearly every meal. It flavored food, preserved ingredients, and even served purposes beyond cooking. The olive tree itself occupied an almost sacred place in Greek life. Imagine standing beneath an old olive grove, stretching across gentle hillsides. The twisted trunks seem almost alive with memory. Some trees may already have been centuries old, while philosophers like Socrates walked the streets of Athens. Each autumn, families gathered to harvest the fruit by hand. Olives were carefully sorted, some became food, others were pressed into rich golden oil. Very little was wasted. Olive oil flavored meals, fueled lamps, softened leather, cared for skin, and even played a role in religious ceremonies. It became one of the quiet treasures of Greek civilization. Because olive trees required years before producing abundant fruit, planting one represented patience. Those who planted trees often knew they were caring not only for themselves but for children and grandchildren who would one day harvest the richest crops. This long view of life quietly shaped Greek thinking. Many decisions were made with future generations in mind. As you continue through the marketplace, another interesting custom begins to appear. Meals themselves followed certain expectations. Ancient Greeks appreciated moderation. Although celebrations certainly included generous feasts, everyday eating was usually simple. Fresh vegetables, bread, olives, cheese made from sheep's or goat's milk. Seasonal fruits, fish were available, wine mixed with water. This final detail often surprises modern readers. Wine was widely enjoyed throughout Greece. However, drinking undiluted wine was often considered improper in many social settings. Instead, water was commonly added before serving. The exact proportions varied depending upon the occasion. To many Greeks, moderation reflected self-control. Imagine sitting beneath the shade of a grapevine during a warm afternoon. A clay cup is gently filled from a larger mixing bowl. The wine has already been blended with cool spring water. Neighbors quietly share stories while enjoying a simple meal. No one rushes. Conversation flows gently from one subject to another. Politics, harvests, children, poetry, weather. The pace remains slow. Meals offered opportunities not only for nourishment but for companionship. One of the most famous social gatherings in ancient Greece was known as the symposium. Today, the word often refers to academic conferences. Originally, however, it described a gathering where guests shared conversation, music, poetry, and carefully moderated drinking after the evening meal. Imagine entering such a gathering. Oil lamps cast warm light across painted pottery decorating the room. Guests recline comfortably upon couches arranged around low tables. A musician quietly plays the lyre, while another recites lines from familiar poems. Discussion ranges across many subjects: philosophy, friendship, politics, the nature of happiness, the changing seasons, sometimes serious, sometimes playful. The symposium became an important place for exchanging ideas. Yet even here, customs guided behavior. Courtesy mattered. Conversation was valued. Excessive drunkenness generally attracted criticism rather than admiration. Balance remained an ideal. As the morning grows warmer, you notice another fascinating detail. Clothing in ancient Greece appears surprisingly simple. Many garments consisted of large pieces of woven cloth, carefully wrapped and fastened rather than stitched into complex shapes. The chiton served as one of the most common garments for both men and women, though styles differed. Imagine watching a skilled weaver completing the fabric months before anyone wears it. Each thread crosses another with patient precision. The finished cloth is folded around the body and secured with decorative pins or belts. Without modern buttons or zippers, every fold requires careful arrangement. Simple though these garments appear, they reveal much about their wearer. The quality of the cloth, its color, its decoration, its cleanliness, all quietly communicate information. Some colors proved more expensive than others because the dyes required rare materials. Purple, for example, became associated with wealth in many parts of the ancient Mediterranean because producing the dye demanded enormous labor. Most ordinary people wore clothing dyed with more easily available natural colors: cream, brown, soft reds, earthy yellows, muted greens. The colors blended naturally with the surrounding landscape. Imagine standing on a hillside overlooking a Greek village. White houses, green olive trees, golden grain fields, blue sea, earth-colored clothing. Nothing seems out of place. Human life and nature appear gently connected. Another interesting custom involved going barefoot or wearing simple sandals. The warm Mediterranean climate made heavy footwear unnecessary during much of the year. Leather sandals protected feet while allowing comfortable movement across rocky paths. Children often ran barefoot during warmer months, their laughter echoing between stone buildings. Even these practical choices reflected local geography and climate. As midday approaches, the streets grow quieter. The sun climbs high above the hills, filling the air with warmth. Cicadas begin their familiar chorus among the olive branches. Many people retreat indoors or seek shade beneath covered walkways. Ancient Greeks understood the importance of adjusting daily routines to the weather. Work often began very early. The hottest hours encouraged rest before activity resumed later in the afternoon. This rhythm reflected wisdom gained through generations of experience. Nature determined the schedule more than clocks ever could. Imagine sitting beneath the broad branches of a plane tree beside a cool stream. Travelers stop briefly to drink fresh water. Donkeys graze nearby. The gentle sound of flowing water blends with birdsong. Time seems almost suspended. Moments like these remind us that ancient life often moved at a pace modern people rarely experience. As afternoon slowly returns to activity, children once again fill the streets. They play simple games using stones, sticks, hoops, or handmade balls. Laughter drifts through open courtyards. Older neighbors smile quietly while continuing their work. Children also learned important rules through play. Respect older people, speak politely, care for shared spaces, observe festivals properly. These lessons became part of growing up. Not every rule required punishment. Many simply became habits practiced every day. Cleanliness also held greater importance than some modern myths suggest. Public fountains supplied fresh water. Bathing varied according to location, wealth, and local custom, but Greeks generally appreciated personal cleanliness. Athletes, especially, washed carefully after exercise. Oil was sometimes applied to the skin before being gently scraped away with a curved metal tool called a strigil, removing dust and sweat after physical activity. Imagine athletes leaving a training ground as the afternoon breeze cools their skin. They clean themselves carefully before returning home. Nearby conversations continue softly. No one seems hurried. Everything unfolds with quiet purpose. As evening approaches once more, smoke rises from household kitchens. Families prepare another modest meal. The smell of roasting onions mingles with fresh herbs. Bread cools upon woven baskets. Children help arrange clay bowls upon low tables. The day's work gradually gives way to peaceful conversation. Outside, neighbors greet one another with familiar kindness. Reputation remains important. A person known for courtesy earns lasting respect. Public behavior reflects not only individual character, but also the honor of the family. Small actions matter. Keeping promises, speaking honestly, showing restraint, treating guests with kindness, sharing when possible. These quiet expectations helped communities remain stable across generations. As the sunlight turns golden, long shadows stretch across marble temples and dusty roads alike. The marketplace slowly empties. Merchants cover their goods. Farmers return from surrounding fields. Shepherds guide flocks back towards stone enclosures. The familiar sounds of evening settle gently over the countryside. Looking back upon today's journey, many of the strange rules surrounding food, clothing, and daily behavior no longer seem especially mysterious. They were practical. They reflected climate, resources, religion, community. Above all, they encouraged moderation, a quality admired by many Greek thinkers who believed that balance often led to a good life. Even ordinary meals became opportunities to practice gratitude. Simple clothing reflected practicality rather than extravagance. Courtesy strengthened neighborhoods. Shared customs created trust. History often preserves the stories of kings, generals, and philosophers, yet the quiet habits of ordinary people tell us just as much about a civilization. Every loaf of bread baked before sunrise, every carefully woven garment, every family meal shared beneath an open courtyard. Together they formed the peaceful rhythm of everyday Greek life. Night slowly returns across the hills. The stars appear one after another above the calm Aegean Sea. A cool breeze rustles the olive leaves, carrying their gentle whisper through the darkness. Tomorrow, our journey will continue with the youngest members of Greek society, exploring the curious rules that shaped childhood, education, discipline, and the path from innocence to adulthood. The quiet night has once again wrapped itself around the hills of Greece. Above the sleeping villages, Countless stars shimmer with the same gentle light that guided sailors, shepherds, and travelers thousands of years ago. The moon hangs peacefully above the olive groves, and somewhere beyond the distant cliffs, the sea continues its endless, calming rhythm. Nothing feels hurried. Nothing asks for your attention. You simply continue your slow journey through another ordinary day in the ancient world. As the morning slowly arrives, the eastern sky begins to glow with soft shades of silver and pale gold. Dew rests upon blades of grass, and tiny droplets sparkle among the leaves of wild herbs growing beside the narrow stone paths. Birds begin their quiet songs from cypress trees, while the cool morning air carries the comforting scent of fresh earth and olive wood smoke. You find yourself standing near a modest family home. The wooden door has just opened. Inside, another day is beginning. Children are already awake. Unlike modern childhood, where schools, books, and toys often shape daily routines, childhood in ancient Greece was closely connected to family life, community traditions, and the responsibilities that awaited every young person. From their earliest years, children were quietly preparing for adulthood. Every lesson mattered. Every habit mattered. Every small action slowly shaped the person they would become. Imagine watching a little boy carefully follow his father into the courtyard. The child carries a small clay jug that feels surprisingly heavy in his hands. His father smiles gently and shows him how to pour water without spilling it. It seems like a simple task. Yet patience begins with simple tasks. Responsibility begins with ordinary moments. Nearby, a young girl sits beside her mother, learning how wool is prepared before it becomes thread. Her small fingers carefully touch the soft fibers, while her mother explains each step with calm repetition. There is no hurry, no loud instruction, only quiet practice. In many Greek homes, education began long before children entered formal lessons. Parents taught through daily life, children watched, they listened, then they tried for themselves. Mistakes were expected. Learning came through repetition rather than speed. The household itself became the first classroom. Imagine the sounds filling the courtyard. The gentle scrape of a hand mill grinding grain. The soft clucking of chickens. The splash of water poured into clay jars. The rhythmic tapping of a loom as cloth slowly takes shape. Children grew up surrounded by these familiar sounds. Each one quietly became part of their understanding of the world. As they grew older, many boys in cities such as Athens began receiving a more formal education. This is one of the achievements for which ancient Greece is still remembered today. The Greeks believed that an educated citizen could contribute wisely to society. Yet education was not exactly the same for everyone. Most formal schooling was available primarily to boys from families who could afford it. Girls usually learned within the household, gaining practical knowledge that prepared them for managing homes and families. Modern readers often notice this difference immediately. It reflects the social structure of the time rather than an absence of intelligence or ability among women. The opportunities available to individuals were shaped by the customs of their society. Imagine walking with a young Athenian boy as he makes his way to his teacher. The streets are already becoming lively. Merchants prepare their stalls. Craftsmen open workshop doors. Neighbors greet one another politely. The boy carries a small wax tablet and a stylus. Unlike paper, wax tablets could be written upon, smoothed over, and used again many times. They were practical, reusable, and well suited for daily lessons. His teacher welcomes the students without ceremony. The room is simple. No grand building, no rows of desks. Only a quiet place where learning unfolds through conversation, reading, memorization, and careful practice. The first lessons often focus upon reading and writing. Children slowly learn the Greek alphabet, tracing each letter patiently until their hands remember the movements. Reading requires effort. Books are rare and valuable. Many texts exist only as handwritten scrolls. Because written copies are limited, memory becomes an important skill. Imagine listening as students quietly recite lines from Homer. The words have been spoken by countless generations before them. Each sentence carries not only language, but stories of courage, loyalty, wisdom, and human nature. The poems become more than literature. They become teachers. Children also study arithmetic. Numbers help merchants trade fairly. Builders measure carefully. Farmers calculate harvests. Knowledge proves useful far beyond the classroom. Music also holds an important place. To many Greeks, music is not simply entertainment. It shapes character. Young students learn to play instruments such as the lyre. Gentle melodies accompany songs and poetry. The goal is not fame. The goal is harmony. Imagine hearing the quiet notes of several lyres played together. The sound is soft and peaceful, blending naturally with the morning breeze, drifting through open windows. Music teaches patience, listening, balance. These qualities are admired throughout Greek life. Physical education receives equal attention. Ancient Greeks believed that caring for the body supports a healthy mind. Children run, jump, throw, wrestle, practice balance and coordination. These activities prepare them for adult responsibilities while encouraging discipline and cooperation. Imagine a group of boys practicing in an open field beneath the warm Mediterranean sun. Dust rises gently beneath their feet. Their instructor offers calm corrections rather than angry commands. Every movement improves through repetition, not perfection. Simply steady progress. One of the most interesting Greek ideas is that education should develop the whole person. The mind, the body, the character. None should be neglected. This belief continues to influence educational thinking even today. As the morning grows warmer, lessons pause for a simple meal. Bread, olives, cheese, fresh fruit, if available. Children eat together quietly. Before returning to their studies, conversation remains respectful. Older students sometimes help younger ones. Learning becomes a shared journey rather than a competition. Outside the classroom, however, another teacher quietly waits. Nature itself. Imagine following children into nearby hills after lessons end. They notice birds building nests among olive branches. They watch shepherds guiding sheep through rocky valleys. They observe changing weather, the movement of clouds, the arrival of different flowers with each season. Ancient life encourages careful observation because survival often depends upon understanding the natural world. Children learn which herbs are useful, which plants should be avoided, when olives are ready for harvest, how stars help travelers find their way at night. Knowledge grows from experience, not only from books. Discipline also forms an important part of childhood. Modern readers sometimes imagine ancient discipline as constant, harsh punishment. The reality is often more varied. Certainly, strict discipline existed. Some teachers and parents believed firm correction prepared children for adult responsibilities. Yet many lessons relied simply upon routine, expectation, and example. Children learned by watching respected adults. A father who behaved honorably, encouraged honorable children. A mother known for kindness taught kindness without needing many words. Character grew slowly through daily habits. Imagine a young boy accidentally dropping a clay water jar. The vessel breaks upon the stone floor. For a moment, silence fills the courtyard. His father does not immediately shout. Instead, he calmly explains how much effort was required to shape the clay, fire the pottery, transport it safely, and preserve it until today. The child learns not only to be careful, he learns to value the work of others. Sometimes the quietest lessons remain longest in memory. As afternoon approaches, children once again fill the streets. They invent games using pebbles, sticks, hoops, or small leather balls. Simple toys encourage imagination more than complexity. One group pretends to be sailors crossing distant seas. Another imagines heroic adventures described in familiar stories. Laughter echoes between stone walls. Childhood remains joyful despite its responsibilities. Even play quietly teaches cooperation, fairness, and creativity. Imagine sitting beneath the shade of a broad olive tree while children nearby play a chasing game. The leaves rustle gently overhead. A shepherd's flute drifts across the valley. Bees hum among flowering herbs. Time seems wonderfully slow. It becomes easy to understand how closely ancient childhood remained connected to the natural world. The changing seasons shape every year. Spring brings blossoms. Summer offers warmth and harvest preparations. Autumn fills groves with olives and vineyards with ripe grapes. Winter encourages storytelling around warm hearths. Children grow alongside these rhythms. One city, however, follows a very different path. Sparta. Here, childhood unfolds according to customs unlike those found elsewhere in Greece. From an early age, Spartan boys prepare for military life. Their education emphasizes endurance, courage, obedience, and loyalty to the community. Life becomes deliberately simple. Comfort receives little attention. Meals remain modest. Sleeping arrangements encourage resilience. Training strengthens both body and mind. Imagine a quiet Spartan morning. The boys rise before sunrise. The air feels cool. Mist hangs lightly across nearby fields. Without complaint, they begin another day of exercise and instruction. Their teachers expect determination rather than luxury. Even conversation remains brief. These customs may seem unusual today, yet they reflected Sparta's belief that strong citizens protected the city. Interestingly, Spartan girls also received physical education. They exercised, ran, and developed athletic skills to a greater extent than was common in many other Greek cities. The Spartans believed healthy mothers would raise healthy children. Although opportunities still differed from those available to men, this aspect of Spartan life stood apart from many neighboring communities. History often reminds us that even closely related societies can develop remarkably different traditions. As the afternoon slowly cools, families gather once more inside shaded courtyards. Children help prepare the evening meal. Some fetch water. Others collect firewood. Older siblings assist younger ones. Responsibility increases gradually with age. No single day transforms a child into an adult. Instead, countless ordinary days quietly build maturity. One lesson appears again and again throughout Greek childhood. Respect for parents, teachers, guests, neighbors, the gods, the city, the family. Respect forms the invisible thread connecting many different customs. Without it, Greek society believed order would weaken. As golden sunlight settles gently across rooftops, children finish their final games before returning home. Oil lamps begin glowing inside houses. The smell of warm bread and roasted vegetables fills the evening air. Families gather together. Stories are shared. Questions are answered. Tomorrow will bring new lessons. And slowly, almost without noticing, another generation prepares itself to inherit the customs of the ancient world. Looking back upon the day, it becomes clear that Greek education reached far beyond reading and writing. It sought to shape thoughtful citizens, responsible family members, honest neighbors, people capable of balancing knowledge with self-control. Not every method would suit the modern world. Yet the desire to prepare young people for meaningful lives remains deeply familiar across every century. The stars gradually return above the peaceful hills. The sea continues its quiet rhythm beneath the moonlight. The olive trees whisper softly as the evening breeze moves through their branches. Our journey is still unfolding. Tomorrow we will travel south into one of history's most remarkable cities, where discipline, simplicity, and unusual customs shaped a society unlike any other in ancient Greece. The stars slowly fade as another gentle dawn arrives over the mountains of southern Greece. A pale ribbon of light appears above the eastern horizon, and the cool morning breeze carries the familiar scent of pine, wild sage, and the distant sea. The olive trees stand quietly against the brightening sky, their silver leaves whispering softly whenever the wind passes through them. For a few peaceful moments, the land seems perfectly still. Only the chirping of small birds and the distant bells of grazing sheep disturb the silence. You find yourself walking farther south than before, leaving behind the busy streets of Athens and following an ancient road into the valley of Laconia. The mountains rise steadily around you. The land feels different here, less crowded, less concerned with decoration. Everything appears simple, purposeful, quiet. Soon, another city slowly comes into view. There are no towering monuments welcoming visitors, no magnificent harbor filled with merchant ships, no bustling crowds debating philosophy in the marketplace. Instead, the city seems almost modest, reserved, disciplined. You have arrived in Sparta. Few places in history have inspired as much curiosity as this remarkable city. For centuries, travelers told stories about its unusual customs. Some stories grew larger with every generation. Others remained surprisingly accurate. As always, history asks us to separate legend from reality. The real Sparta was fascinating enough, without exaggeration. Imagine entering the city shortly after sunrise. The streets are clean but plain. Stone houses stand without unnecessary decoration. The people move quietly, each already focused on the work awaiting them. No one seems interested in displaying wealth, simple clothing, simple homes, simple meals. This simplicity was not an accident. It reflected one of Sparta's deepest values. The Spartans believed that luxury could weaken character. Comfort, they feared, might encourage laziness. Instead, they admired discipline, endurance, and self-control. These ideas shaped many of the city's most unusual rules. As you continue your slow walk, the morning air grows warmer. Nearby, young men are already exercising in an open field. Their movements are calm and practiced rather than hurried. An older instructor watches carefully, offering only a few quiet words when correction is needed. Training begins early. In Sparta, preparing the body was considered part of preparing the mind. Many people have heard that Spartan boys left home at the age of 7 to begin the agoge, the state's famous education and training system. This is generally true, although the details varied over time. Imagine a small boy standing beside his family before sunrise. His mother gently adjusts his simple cloak. His father places a reassuring hand upon his shoulder. There are no elaborate ceremonies, only quiet understanding. The child now begins a very different chapter of life. He joins other boys his age. Together, they begin years of education unlike almost anywhere else in Greece. Modern readers sometimes imagine the agoge as nothing but endless hardship. Certainly, it demanded endurance. The boys exercised daily. They learned discipline. They developed teamwork. They practiced survival skills. They studied music and poetry as well, though these subjects often receive less attention in popular stories. The goal was not simply to create strong soldiers. The goal was to shape loyal citizens who placed the needs of Sparta above personal comfort. Picture yourself walking beside one group of boys as they travel toward a training ground. Morning mist still clings to the grass. The air feels fresh. No one speaks loudly. The boys carry very few possessions. They have learned that unnecessary luxury only becomes another burden to carry. Their instructors encourage resourcefulness. One famous tradition tells us that boys were given limited food, encouraging them to become clever and resourceful. Ancient writers even suggested that if they stole food successfully, they were praised for their skill. If they were caught, however, they received punishment, not for stealing itself, but for failing to avoid detection. This story has become one of Sparta's most famous customs. Modern historians debate exactly how widespread or literal this practice was, since most surviving descriptions were written by outsiders or centuries later. Even so, the story reflects an important Spartan ideal. Resourcefulness mattered. Quick thinking mattered. Carelessness did not. Imagine a young trainee quietly observing the countryside. He notices edible berries growing beside a stream. He watches birds searching for insects beneath loose stones. Every detail becomes a lesson in observation. Patience becomes as valuable as strength. As the sun rises higher, another unusual feature of Spartan society begins to appear. Unlike many other Greek cities, Spartan women often enjoyed greater freedom of movement. This does not mean they possessed equal political rights with men. They did not. However, Spartan girls commonly received physical training. They exercised outdoors. They ran. They wrestled. They practiced throwing the discus and javelin. To outsiders, these customs sometimes seemed surprising. The Spartans believed healthy women would raise healthy families. Imagine watching a group of young women running across an open field beneath the warm Mediterranean sun. Their movements are confident. Nearby elders observe without surprise. To Sparta, physical fitness formed part of ordinary life for both boys and girls. Visitors from Athens sometimes viewed these customs with curiosity. Different Greek cities often admired very different qualities. As the morning slowly becomes afternoon, you notice another remarkable difference. Money itself occupies a smaller place in Spartan life than in many neighboring cities. According to ancient tradition, Sparta discouraged the pursuit of luxury and wealth. Some ancient writers even claimed that heavy iron bars were once used instead of precious metal coins for certain purposes, making large fortunes difficult to transport or accumulate. Whether this practice remained consistent throughout Spartan history is uncertain, but the tradition itself reveals an important ideal. Excessive wealth attracted suspicion. Public service earned greater respect. Imagine entering a modest Spartan home. The walls are plain, the furniture is simple. There are no elaborate decorations. The family shares a meal consisting of bread, olives, cheese, vegetables, and perhaps a portion of the famous black broth that later writers described with equal parts curiosity and disbelief. Broth became one of Sparta's enduring legends. Ancient descriptions suggest it was made with pork, blood, salt, and vinegar. Visitors from other cities often disliked its taste. Spartans, however, considered it perfectly suitable. To them, food existed primarily to nourish the body. Pleasure came second. Picture yourself sitting quietly among the family. Outside, a gentle breeze rustles through nearby olive trees. The meal is simple. Conversation remains calm. No one complains about the lack of luxury. Contentment grows not from abundance, but from habit. One of Sparta's strangest customs involved public meals. Adult male citizens often ate together in common dining groups known as syzetia. Rather than taking every meal privately with their families, they regularly gathered with fellow citizens. Each member contributed food according to established expectations. These shared meals strengthened friendship, equality, and loyalty. Imagine a long wooden table inside a modest dining hall. Oil lamps cast soft light across clay bowls and wooden cups. Men who have trained together for years now eat together quietly. Conversations remain thoughtful. News is exchanged. Advice is offered. Experience passes naturally from older generations to younger ones. Meals become another lesson in community. As afternoon shadows begin stretching across the valley, you walk toward the fields beyond the city. Here another important reality quietly appears. Much of Sparta's agricultural work was performed by people known as helots. The helots were not ordinary citizens. They were a population bound to the land and compelled to work for the Spartan state. Their status was harsh and deeply unequal. Understanding Sparta honestly requires acknowledging this reality. The military society, admired by many later generations, depended heavily upon the labor of others who possessed very little freedom. History often contains such difficult contrasts. A civilization may achieve remarkable discipline while also creating serious injustice. Both truths deserve to be remembered. Imagine the fields during harvest season. Golden grain sways gently beneath the warm breeze. Workers move steadily beneath the afternoon sun. Shepherds guide flocks across nearby hills. Life continues quietly, yet beneath its peaceful appearance lies a complex social system that shaped every aspect of Spartan society. As the day slowly cools, children once again fill the open spaces. Some practice running. Others throw small wooden spears. A few sit beneath the shade of ancient trees, listening to older relatives tell stories of ancestors whose courage became part of local memory. Spartans valued stories not because they celebrated glory alone, but because they reminded each generation of shared responsibility. Even speech reflected Spartan values. Lengthy conversations rarely impressed anyone. Simple, thoughtful words carried greater respect. Imagine asking an elderly Spartan for advice. He listens patiently. After a long pause, he offers only a single sentence. Yet within those few words rests years of experience. This habit of speaking briefly became famous throughout Greece. Visitors often returned home amused, surprised, or deeply impressed. As evening approaches, golden sunlight settles across the Eurotas Valley. The mountains surrounding Sparta glow softly beneath the fading light. Smoke rises from household fires. Birds circle quietly above the fields before returning to their nests. Families gather once again for the evening. The pace of life slows. Children return home. Animals settle into their shelters. The cool evening breeze replaces the warmth of the afternoon. Looking back upon today's journey, Sparta's strange rules begin to reveal their deeper purpose. Simple clothing reduced vanity. Shared meals strengthened unity. Physical training encouraged resilience. Brief speech reflected careful thinking. Community often came before the individual. Not every Spartan custom would be admired today. Some appear harsh. Some depended upon inequality. Others reveal remarkable discipline and commitment. History rarely offers simple heroes or simple villains. Instead, it presents human societies doing their best and sometimes their worst, according to the beliefs of their own time. As darkness gently settles over the valley, the stars slowly return above the mountains. The same stars once watched generations of Spartans complete another ordinary day before quietly resting until morning. The wind moves softly through the cypress trees. Somewhere nearby, water flows peacefully along the banks of the Eurotas River. Our journey now leaves Sparta behind. Tomorrow we will travel back to Athens, where a very different set of unusual rules shaped the world's first great experiment in democracy, public debate, and civic responsibility. The night has gently settled over the valley once more. The quiet mountains surrounding Sparta slowly disappear into the darkness, while above them the stars shine with a calm certainty that has guided travelers for countless generations. A cool breeze carries the scent of pine and distant olive groves, and somewhere nearby, the soft sound of flowing water continues through the silence. For a little while, everything rests: the fields, the roads, the villages. Even the sea seems to breathe more slowly beneath the moonlight. As the morning slowly arrives, a pale glow appears behind the eastern hills. The first rays of sunlight touch the rocky landscape before spreading across the valleys of southern Greece. Birds awaken one by one, filling the cool air with gentle songs, while shepherds quietly prepare to lead their flocks toward fresh grazing land. Today, however, your journey takes you away from Sparta. You begin walking northward. The road winds through mountain passes where wild flowers grow between ancient stones. Cypress trees stand silently along the hillsides, and every so often the distant blue of the Aegean Sea appears between the valleys. The journey is long, yet there is no need to hurry. With every quiet step, the landscape slowly changes. The mountains become gentler. The farms grow more numerous. Travelers appear more frequently along the road. Merchants guide donkeys carrying woven baskets filled with pottery, olive oil, and wine. Fishermen returning from coastal villages exchange friendly greetings with farmers bringing vegetables toward nearby markets. As the sun rises higher, a familiar city slowly comes into view. Marble buildings begin reflecting the morning light. Columns rise above rooftops. The rocky hill known as the Acropolis watches peacefully over everything below. You have returned to Athens. If Sparta admired silence and discipline above almost everything else, Athens admired something quite different: conversation, questions, ideas, discussion. Few cities in history placed so much trust in the power of words. Imagine entering Athens shortly after sunrise. The streets are already becoming lively. Potters open their workshops. Metal workers begin heating their furnaces. Fresh bread cools outside neighborhood bakeries. Children hurry toward their teachers while older citizens gather beneath shaded porticos, already discussing the events of the previous day. Unlike many ancient cities, Athens encouraged citizens to take an active role in public affairs. This idea became one of its most remarkable achievements. Yet, like many parts of Greek history, it also carried important limitations. Today we often hear that Athens invented democracy. That statement is broadly true. The word itself comes from two Greek words meaning the people and power or rule. But understanding Athenian democracy requires careful attention. Not everyone belonged to the people in the political sense. Adult male citizens generally possessed the right to participate. Women did not vote. Foreign residents usually could not vote. Enslaved people certainly could not vote. Even so, within the community of citizens, Athens developed something extraordinary. Instead of choosing representatives to make every decision, many important questions were debated directly. Imagine yourself walking toward the Pnyx Hill, the open space where the assembly often met. The morning air remains pleasantly cool. Hundreds of citizens gradually arrive from every direction. Some wear simple farming clothes, still carrying traces of dust from country roads. Others have come directly from workshops, their hands showing the marks of years spent shaping wood, bronze, or clay. There are no grand entrances, no elaborate ceremonies, only ordinary people gathering to discuss the future of their city. The atmosphere feels thoughtful rather than dramatic. Someone proposes repairing part of the city walls. Another suggests changing trade regulations. A third speaks about relations with neighboring cities. One by one, citizens rise to offer opinions. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they disagree. Yet discussion itself is valued. Imagine listening carefully. The crowd does not expect every speaker to be perfect. Instead, it expects every speaker to think carefully. Words matter here, not because they are loud, but because they influence decisions affecting thousands of lives. One of the most unusual rules in Athens was that public participation was considered a responsibility as well as a privilege. Citizens were expected to take an interest in civic life. Ignoring public affairs was often viewed with disappointment rather than admiration. The Greeks believed a healthy city depended upon citizens who cared about more than their own private concerns. This idea still echoes through many democracies today. As you quietly observe the assembly, another interesting custom becomes clear. Many public officials served for relatively short periods. Some offices were even assigned by lottery among eligible citizens. To modern ears, this may sound surprising. Why leave important positions partly to chance? The Athenians believed that frequent rotation reduced the possibility that a small group might permanently control power. Not every office used this system. Positions requiring specialized military experience, such as generals, were usually elected rather than selected by lot. Still, the use of lotteries reflected Athens' desire to spread civic responsibility among its citizens. Imagine a modest craftsman learning that he has been selected to perform public duties for a limited time. Yesterday he shaped pottery. Today he helps serve the city. Tomorrow he will return to his workshop. Government becomes something ordinary citizens temporarily participate in rather than a profession reserved for a permanent ruling class. As the sun climbs steadily into the sky, you leave the assembly and continue towards the agora. The marketplace is now alive with activity. Merchants greet familiar customers. Travelers speak with local craftsmen. Children weave happily between market stalls, while philosophers quietly gather beneath shaded colonnades. The agora is much more than a place to buy food. It is the living heart of Athens. Imagine standing beside a fruit seller arranging fresh figs into neat baskets. Nearby, a bronze worker polishes finished tools until they shine in the sunlight. The smell of olives, herbs, bread, and sea fish blends gently together. Everywhere, conversations continue. Politics, poetry, business, family news, the weather. No subject seems too small. No question seems entirely unwelcome. It is here that another remarkable Greek custom quietly flourishes. Philosophy. Today, philosophy sometimes feels distant or academic. In ancient Athens, it often began with ordinary conversations. Imagine passing beneath the shade of an old plane tree. A small group is gathered around an elderly man asking simple questions. What is justice? What makes someone wise? Can a good person become happier by acting honestly? The questions seem familiar even after thousands of years. The man asking them is not delivering a speech. Instead, he encourages others to think for themselves. Whether or not you imagine Socrates standing there on this particular morning, his method reflects a broader Athenian tradition. Questions could become a path toward understanding. This habit of respectful inquiry became one of Athens' greatest gifts to later civilizations. Yet freedom of speech also had limits. Athens encouraged debate. It did not guarantee that every opinion would be welcomed equally. History reminds us of the trial of Socrates himself. Accused of impiety and corrupting the youth, he was convicted by a citizen jury and sentenced to drink poison hemlock. Modern historians continue discussing every aspect of the trial. What remains clear is that even societies devoted to open discussion sometimes struggled to decide where disagreement should end. History often contains such quiet contradictions. As afternoon approaches, the warm Mediterranean sun fills the marble streets with light. Many Athenians pause for simple meals beneath shaded walkways. Bread, cheese, olives, fresh vegetables, diluted wine. The familiar rhythm of ordinary life continues around the remarkable experiment of democracy. Imagine sitting quietly beside a public fountain. The cool sound of flowing water softens the afternoon heat. Children laugh nearby, while pigeons flutter between marble columns. An elderly potter explains to his grandson why honesty matters in trade. A young student recites lines from Homer while waiting for his teacher. Everyday life continues almost unnoticed, yet it forms the foundation upon which public life depends. No democracy can exist without ordinary people quietly living together. Another unusual feature of Athenian society involved juries. Instead of relying upon a single judge to decide many legal disputes, Athens often used large citizen juries. Sometimes hundreds of jurors listened carefully before reaching a decision. To modern observers, these enormous juries may seem surprising. Yet the Athenians believed many citizens together reduced the chance that one powerful individual might control justice alone. Imagine entering a courthouse filled not with silence but with attentive listeners. Each juror understands that today's decision may shape another person's future. Responsibility rests not in one pair of hands but in many. As the afternoon slowly cools, you climb towards the Acropolis. The great hill rises above the city like a quiet guardian. Marble temples glow softly beneath the late sunlight. The Parthenon stands proudly, honoring Athena, the city's patron goddess. Imagine pausing beside one of its columns. A gentle breeze carries the scent of warm stone and distant olive trees. Below you, Athens stretches across the landscape, the agora, the homes, the workshops, the schools, the assembly. Everything appears peaceful from above. It becomes easier to understand why the Athenians believed their city required thoughtful citizens. Each household depended upon another. Each neighborhood contributed to the whole. As evening approaches, long shadows slowly stretch across the marble steps. Workers begin closing their shops. Merchants pack away unsold goods. Families gather once more around evening meals. The city gradually becomes quieter. Looking back upon today's journey, Athens' unusual rules reveal themselves not as strange curiosities, but as thoughtful attempts to answer timeless questions. How should people govern themselves? Who should participate? How can disagreements be settled peacefully? How much responsibility belongs to each citizen? The Athenians did not solve every problem. Their democracy excluded many people. Their decisions were not always wise, yet their willingness to experiment with public participation changed history forever. Many ideas first explored beneath these open skies continue influencing governments around the world today. Night slowly returns over Athens. The Acropolis shines softly beneath the rising moon. Oil lamps flicker behind wooden shutters. The distant sea whispers beyond the city walls. A cool breeze moves gently through the olive groves surrounding the countryside. Tomorrow, our quiet journey will leave the busy assembly behind and enter the sacred world of temples, festivals, and ancient rituals, where some of Greece's most mysterious rules were believed to honor the gods themselves. The evening has quietly wrapped itself around Athens. One by one, the voices from the agora have faded into the gentle darkness, leaving only the occasional footsteps of a late traveler crossing the worn stone streets. Above the Acropolis, countless stars stretch across the clear Mediterranean sky, just as they did for the generations who once looked upward after another ordinary day. A cool breeze moves softly between the marble columns. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls into the night. The city rests. As the morning slowly arrives, the eastern horizon begins to brighten with gentle shades of blue and gold. The first rays of sunlight touch the highest stones of the Parthenon before slowly flowing down across the rooftops below. Olive trees shimmer quietly in the fresh morning air, while the scent of wild lavender and rosemary rises from the nearby hillsides. Today, your journey leads away from the busy marketplace and toward a quieter part of Greek life. It is a world shaped by faith, by tradition, by rituals that connected ordinary people to something that they believed was far greater than themselves. For the people of ancient Greece, religion was not separated from daily life. It was woven into nearly everything they did. Planting crops, beginning a journey, celebrating a wedding, naming a child, preparing for battle, making important political decisions. Even simple meals could begin with a small offering of gratitude. The gods were believed to be present throughout the world, not always seen, but often remembered. Imagine yourself walking along a sacred road leading toward a temple. The stone path is smooth beneath your sandals after centuries of careful footsteps. Cypress trees line the approach, their dark green branches standing quietly against the bright morning sky. Ahead, the temple slowly comes into view. Its white marble columns rise gracefully above the surrounding landscape. There is no rushing crowd. People arrive slowly. Some carry small baskets of fruit. Others bring flowers gathered before sunrise. A few lead animals intended for sacrifice, a practice that formed part of many important public ceremonies in the ancient Greek world. The atmosphere feels respectful, peaceful, measured. Temples in ancient Greece were not exactly like many modern places of worship. Most large gatherings and ceremonies often took place outside, before an altar rather than inside the temple building itself. The temple primarily served as the sacred dwelling place of the deity's statue, and as a place for storing valuable offerings. Imagine standing quietly in the temple courtyard. Morning sunlight warms the marble beneath your feet. The faint scent of burning incense drifts gently through the air. Priests move calmly between the altar and the gathered visitors. Nearby, birds perch upon the temple roof, seemingly undisturbed by the quiet rituals below. Everything unfolds with careful order. Ancient Greeks believed that respecting proper rituals honored the gods and helped maintain harmony between humanity and the divine. This helps explain why so many religious customs followed very specific rules. Certain festivals occurred only at particular times of the year. Certain offerings belonged to specific gods. Certain sacred places required careful behavior from every visitor. To modernize these customs may seem highly formal. To ancient worshippers, they created a comforting sense of continuity. Generation after generation repeated familiar ceremonies, believing they were preserving traditions passed down from distant ancestors. Imagine an elderly grandfather bringing his young grandson to a temple for the first time. The older man quietly explains why visitors wash their hands before approaching the altar. Not because they are physically dirty, but because clean hands symbolize respect. The child listens carefully. He copies the movement. Without realizing it, another generation quietly learns an ancient tradition. One of the most remarkable aspects of Greek religion was its connection to festivals. Throughout the year, cities paused their ordinary routines to celebrate gods through music, athletic competitions, dramatic performances, sacrifices, and communal meals. These festivals brought entire communities together. Imagine Athens during the Great Panathenea, a festival honoring Athena. The city awakens before sunrise. People gather from every neighborhood. Visitors arrive from distant villages. Fresh flowers decorate public spaces. Musicians tune their instruments. The air feels festive, yet calm. Long processions slowly make their way toward the Acropolis. Young women carry beautifully woven robes prepared over many months as gifts for Athena's sacred statue. Citizens walk together with quiet pride. Children watch with wide eyes. The entire city seems united by a shared tradition. These processions were more than celebrations. They reminded every participant that they belonged to something larger than themselves. Religion strengthened community as much as personal belief. As your peaceful walk continues, you notice another fascinating custom. Ancient Greeks believed that every god possessed particular areas of influence. Poseidon watched over the sea. Demeter protected agriculture. Apollo was associated with music, healing, prophecy, and light. Artemis guarded wilderness and hunting. Hermes watched over travelers, merchants, and messengers. Athena represented wisdom, craftsmanship, and strategic thinking. Because each deity held different responsibilities, people often chose their prayers carefully. Imagine a fisherman standing quietly beside the shore before launching his small wooden boat. The sea is calm. Morning mist still lingers above the water. He whispers a short prayer asking for safe passage. Later that same day, a farmer in the countryside quietly thanks Demeter after gentle rain nourishes newly planted grain. Neither prayer is extravagant. Both arise naturally from everyday life. Religion became part of ordinary routines rather than something reserved only for special occasions. As the sun climbs higher into the sky, you leave the temple behind and continue through the countryside. Soon you hear another familiar sound, the distant laughter of children. Nearby families are preparing for a local festival. Women arrange baskets filled with bread, olives, figs, and fresh grapes. Men decorate wooden tables with flowers gathered from nearby fields. Children eagerly practice songs they have learned from older relatives. The entire village contributes. Festivals offered moments of rest from daily labor. Fields could wait. Markets could pause. Neighbors gathered not simply to celebrate, but to strengthen friendships. Shared traditions built strong communities. Imagine sitting beneath the broad branches of an ancient plane tree while musicians quietly begin playing the lyre and flute. The melodies drift gently across the warm afternoon air. People smile, stories are shared. Poets recite familiar verses. Young athletes prepare for friendly competitions. Nothing feels hurried. The celebration unfolds naturally, like the changing seasons themselves. One particularly mysterious place in ancient Greece was Delphi. High upon the slopes of Mount Parnassus stood the sanctuary dedicated to Apollo. Here lived the famous oracle of Delphi. People traveled from across the Greek world seeking guidance. Kings came, generals came, ordinary citizens came. They asked questions about journeys, wars, harvests, and difficult decisions. The answers spoken by the Pythia were often poetic and open to interpretation. Imagine climbing the mountain road toward Delphi. Cool air replaces the warmth of the lower valleys. Pine forests surround the path. Far below, villages appear as tiny clusters of white stone. Eventually, the sanctuary comes into view. Marble buildings seem to emerge naturally from the mountainside. Pilgrims speak quietly. The peaceful atmosphere encourages reflection. Whatever advice visitors received, the journey itself likely inspired careful thought. Sometimes traveling slowly toward an important question helps clarify the answer even before it is spoken. As afternoon begins to soften, your thoughts turn toward another sacred custom. Hospitality. Earlier in our journey, we learned that welcoming strangers carried religious meaning. Now, its deeper significance becomes even clearer. Many Greeks believed Zeus himself protected guests. A traveler arriving unexpectedly might be treated with kindness, not only because compassion was admirable, but because the visitor might be under divine protection. Imagine a dusty traveler reaching a farmhouse just before sunset. The family offers cool water, fresh bread, olives, a place beside the evening fire. Only later do they gently ask where the traveler has come from. The rule appears unusual to modern eyes, yet beneath it lies a beautiful idea. Every stranger deserves dignity until proven otherwise. As evening slowly approaches once again, shadows lengthen across temple courtyards. Priests carefully extinguish incense. Visitors quietly return toward their homes. Birds settle among the marble rooftops. The warm stones gradually release the day's heat into the cooling air. Nearby, children continue asking grandparents questions about the old stories. Why did Athena receive the olive tree? Why does Poseidon rule the sea? Why do the seasons change? The answers come through myths. Today we understand these myths differently than the ancient Greeks did. Modern historians recognize them as traditional stories, expressing cultural values rather than literal historical events. Yet their importance remains enormous. They helped explain the world. They taught lessons. They gave meaning to festivals, rituals, and shared identity. Without these stories, many ancient customs become difficult to understand. As golden light slowly fades from the hills, you pause one final time beside a quiet temple. The marble glows softly beneath the setting sun. The breeze carries the scent of incense, olive leaves, and distant seawater. Everything feels wonderfully peaceful. Looking back upon today's journey, the sacred rules of ancient Greece no longer seem mysterious. They reflected gratitude, community, respect, tradition. Many rituals encouraged people to pause, remember their place within the larger world, and express thankfulness for life's ordinary blessings. Some customs may seem unfamiliar. Some belong entirely to another age. Yet the desire to gather together, celebrate important moments, and seek meaning beyond everyday life remains deeply human. The stars gradually return above the quiet temples. The Acropolis once again watches silently over Athens. Far beyond the city walls, waves continue their endless conversation with the shore. Tomorrow, our peaceful journey will enter another fascinating chapter of ancient life, exploring how justice was pursued, how disputes were settled, and why some of Greece's most unusual laws shaped the courts, punishments, and search for fairness. The night has become wonderfully quiet once again. Above the ancient hills of Greece, countless stars shine with the same gentle light that watched over philosophers, farmers, sailors, craftsmen, children, and travelers so many centuries ago. The sea continues its endless conversation with the shore, never rushing, never stopping, carrying its peaceful rhythm through every generation that has lived beside it. Our long journey is almost complete. Together we have wandered through olive groves at sunrise, quiet village streets, busy marketplaces, sacred temples, mountain paths, and peaceful family courtyards. We have listened to the laughter of children learning their first lessons. We have watched craftsmen patiently shape clay into useful vessels. We have followed shepherds across rocky hillsides. We have stood quietly among citizens gathering to debate the future of their city. We have climbed the Acropolis beneath the warm Mediterranean sun. And now, as evening gently settles over Greece one final time, it is time to look back upon everything we've discovered. When many people first hear the phrase, "ancient Greece's strangest rules," they imagine a collection of curious laws that seem almost impossible to understand. At first glance, they certainly can appear unusual. Citizenship belonged only to certain people. Hospitality towards strangers carried sacred importance. Public meals strengthened Spartan society. Wine was carefully mixed with water. Simple clothing reflected ideals of moderation. Religious festivals united entire communities. Education shaped both character and intellect. Public debate became a civic responsibility. Each custom appears different from modern life, yet as our journey has unfolded, something quietly remarkable has happened. The rules have become less strange. The people have become more familiar. Imagine sitting beneath an ancient olive tree as the last golden light of the day filters gently through its silver leaves. The tree is old, very old. Perhaps it has stood here for centuries. Its roots reach deeply into the rocky soil. Its branches have sheltered generations of families. Children once climbed among its limbs. Grandparents rested beneath its shade. Travelers paused here before continuing their journeys. The tree has watched countless lives quietly pass. History often resembles such a tree. Its branches spread in many directions. Some customs continue growing. Others slowly disappear. Yet the roots remain. One of the greatest lessons ancient Greece offers us is that every society creates rules to answer important questions. How should people live together? How can disagreements be settled peacefully? What responsibilities belong to individuals? How should children be prepared for adulthood? What should communities value most? Different civilizations answer these questions differently. The Greeks offered one remarkable collection of answers. Some continue influencing the modern world. Others remain firmly within their own time. Imagine walking once more through the agora as evening approaches. The merchants have nearly finished their day's work. Fresh bread has almost sold out. Potters carefully cover their finished jars before returning home. Children help carry baskets filled with vegetables gathered from nearby fields. Neighbors stop to exchange a few quiet words before sunset. Nothing about this ordinary evening seems especially extraordinary. Yet it is within such ordinary moments that civilizations are truly built. History is not made only by famous rulers. It is made by ordinary people quietly living ordinary lives. A mother teaching her child to weave. A farmer patiently pruning olive trees. A fisherman repairing worn nets. A teacher helping students learn the alphabet. A craftsman taking pride in honest work. These lives rarely appear in grand monuments, yet without them no civilization could ever exist. Picture yourself walking slowly through an olive grove as the evening breeze gently moves the branches overhead. The scent of crushed herbs rises from the ground beneath your feet. Far away the sea reflects the last colors of sunset. Birdsong gradually fades as the sky deepens towards twilight. In moments like these, it becomes easier to understand why many Greek thinkers spent so much time reflecting upon balance, not endless wealth, not endless power, but balance, moderation, self-control, friendship, curiosity, learning. These ideas appear again and again throughout Greek history. Sometimes they succeeded, sometimes they failed. The Greeks were human, just like us. Their cities experienced war, political disagreement, injustice, disease, economic hardship, personal ambition. They made wise decisions. They also made painful mistakes. Their democracy excluded many people. Their societies often depended upon inequalities that modern readers rightly recognize. Even admired civilizations possess complicated histories. Understanding them honestly means seeing both their achievements and their limitations. History becomes richer when we allow it to remain human. Imagine standing once more upon the Acropolis as darkness slowly covers Athens. The Parthenon glows softly beneath the rising moon. Below, thousands of small oil lamps flicker behind wooden doors. Families gather around evening meals. Children listen as grandparents tell familiar stories. Somewhere a musician quietly plays the lyre. The notes drift gently through the cool night air. Life continues. Tomorrow another sunrise will arrive. Farmers will return to their fields. Merchants will reopen their shops. Teachers will welcome their students. The assembly may gather again. The city lives because ordinary people continue doing ordinary things. That quiet rhythm may be ancient Greece's greatest lesson of all. Civilizations are not sustained by moments of greatness alone. They endure because countless small acts of responsibility are repeated day after day. One loaf of bread baked before sunrise, one promise kept, one child patiently taught, one traveler welcomed with kindness, one neighbor treated fairly, one thoughtful conversation beneath the shade of an olive tree. These quiet actions shape history more deeply than we sometimes realize. As the stars brighten overhead, imagine following a narrow path leading away from the city. Behind you, Athens grows smaller. Ahead, the countryside stretches peacefully beneath the moonlight. Olive trees line the road. Crickets sing softly among the grasses. The air feels cool and comfortable after the warmth of the day. You pause for one final look. The temples, the hills, the sea, the villages, the mountains. Everything appears calm. Thousands of years have passed since these roads were filled with Greek voices. Empires have risen, empires have disappeared, languages have changed, borders have shifted, new ideas have crossed the same seas where ancient ships once sailed. Yet somehow the quiet spirit of these places remains. The wind still moves through the olive leaves. The waves still reach the shore. The stars still shine above the mountains. Nature remembers. And through history, we remember as well. Perhaps that is why ancient Greece continues to fascinate us. Not because its people were perfect, not because every custom deserves imitation, but because their hopes often resemble our own. They wanted safe homes, strong families, honest neighbors, wise leaders, healthy children, good harvests, peace when possible, courage when necessary, a meaningful life. Across more than 2,000 years, those hopes still feel familiar. Imagine taking one final slow breath of the cool Mediterranean night air. The scent of wild thyme, pine, and distant salt water fills the breeze. The sea continues its endless rhythm below the cliffs. The moon casts a silver path across the calm water. Somewhere beyond the hills, a shepherd's dog gives one quiet bark before silence returns. The journey has reached its end. The strange rules of ancient Greece are no longer simply strange. They have become windows into another way of seeing the world. Behind every unusual custom stood real people. People who woke before sunrise, worked with their hands, loved their families, faced uncertainty, celebrated festivals, asked difficult questions, made mistakes, learned, remembered, hoped, and quietly left behind one of history's most enduring civilizations. Now the lamps have grown dim. The marketplaces are silent. The temples rest peacefully beneath the stars. The olive trees whisper one final time as the night breeze moves gently through their ancient branches. Our footsteps slowly fade into the quiet darkness. The sea continues its timeless song. And ancient Greece, with all its mysteries, slowly drifts into the peaceful silence of another beautiful night.